Hi, welcome to another Silent Hill. I was gonna say Silent Hill podcast. Well, it technically is. Welcome to another BioDevils podcast, where we're going to be talking about some more Silent Hill. Today, Silent Hill F, which is something that I've personally been interested to see how this is going to turn out. And they finally gave us a new trailer. There was also a Silent Hill transmission, but we're not going to get too much into the transmission details. More so, we're just going to focus on the trailer and just kind of our general thoughts and concerns regarding what we've seen so far within the trailer. So that being said, you all know me as BioDevil Dom, and I'm joined by two of my friends here. Brandel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm back. Leave me alone.
Yep, and after that we have KaptainKaos. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys?
Alrighty, so with the trailer, we kind of got a little bit more context to Silent Hill F, just as a game. We got to look at what the locations are going to look like in this game. We also got the name of the town, which I cannot remember off the top of my head, so I do apologize. I'm going to pull that up while we're talking. We also got some interesting shots of the other world as well as this like shrine location that they kind of talked about in the transmission as well. And we got a little bit of story bits as well as more details on our main character. So I think these are definitely interesting things. But I'm not sure how this is all gonna play out. I don't know if I have the same amount of skepticism as I did with like the Silent Hill 2 remake. Potentially because this is a brand new game, but I don't know how you guys feel about that in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I'm a lot more. Well, even before the Silent Hill 2 remake came out, I was definitely a lot more interested in Silent Hill F, because firstly because of the setting, and secondly just because of the writer involved, which is Ryuki Shio7, who is pretty well known for writing the series Higurashi When They Cry, which is an psychological horror anime, which was originally based on a visual novel that was written by him. And he's gotten some pretty extensive experience, like writing some other psychological horror series as well as Higurashi. So I think he was a pretty interesting choice to be like writing a Silent Hill game. And also, not to mention, the trailer definitely gave me like vibes, like Siren vibes, which is another game that some of the Team Silent members worked on, as well as Silent that were former members of the Silent Hill team. So it kind of reminded me a lot of that too. So that's another reason I was kind of excited for this.
Brandon?
In my case, though, I wouldn't say I was skeptical. I just more like is there until I see something, right? Same thing with the other projects they announced, like with Silent Hill 2, right? Until I see something, I will say caution to the wind, and like I don't care until it happens, right? Now with Silent Hill 2, though, now that one right there deserves more skepticism because of the team who worked on it and the state that we saw the game in, thanks to mostly Konami rather than the developers, right? So that's more Konami's fault, right? But with that being said, though, what we saw from that trailer, I'm actually pretty hooked to the game because, one, this game is a first for a lot of things. Now, or seconds, depending on how you look at it. So you got another female protagonist again, because I think the last one was just Heather, right? Or was it a character from the Vita game, the Dungeon Crawler, which probably doesn't count, right? But I'm just spitballing here.
Well, and I guess also if you count the short message. Like, I think that
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was about to say, like...
Ooh, my apologies. So this is the third time we play as a female character. We got a Japanese setting, and we got a very famous mangaka, right? writer for this particular.
Technically, he wrote visual novels, but I mean, yeah, sort of similar.
Uh, he's a writer, yeah. Tomato,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So like, okay, so this is pretty interesting, right? Like I said though, until we had something to see though, I don't know what to make of it. And what we got a trailer though. Oh boy, this shit was trippy.
Yeah, the one thing that I did also want to point out too is that I noticed that they specifically avoided showing off combat within the trailer.
Well, I don't think there was. It didn't seem like there's really any gameplay from what I could tell. Like a lot of it was just cinematic.
It was mostly cinematic, but there was a point where they briefly like kind of pan over to what looked like it was gonna like transition into gameplay.
Yeah, and then they cut right before they do. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean it. Well, and then there are some other parts of the trailer too that, just based on the perspective of the character, like it definitely looks like it's. I don't know if they've confirmed it, but it definitely looks like it's over the shoulder for sure.
They did
the over the shoulder perspective. Yeah.
So they did confirm that it was going to be a third-person Silent Hill game, so very similar in play style to like the Silent Hill 2 remake. And they also did confirm that there will be combat. It's going to feature a lot more melee weapons in this case. So we're going to start seeing things like, well, the pipe is already confirmed, right? But there's also going to be things like crowbars and other types of melee weapons that are fitting for the setting.
Yeah, well, I thought it was funny that they had to mention that there weren't going to be any guns in the game. I thought that was, I don't know. I'd assume that most people would basically like assume that there probably would not be guns considering the setting.
They didn't say anything about firearms.
Yeah, I think I heard somewhere they said there wasn't going to be, but I mean, I don't know, maybe.
They didn't say anything about that. I would take the thing about like firearms. I would take that with a huge heap of salt because if anything, like they could easily have guns in Silent Hill F. It just the type of guns they're not going to be. I don't think they're going to be very similar to like what you would see in like the previous Silent Hill games that are set in America, for example. So they're probably going to be like more specific types of firearms that you could only like see in Japan, whether it be like stuff that like a police officer would use or stuff that like hunters or like what is it, like the matchlock competition shooters use and stuff like that. So reenactors, for example, you know. So I think I think there would be room for guns. It just depends on how they're implemented. So
yeah, I mean, the Siren games did have guns, but well, the combat in the Siren games was pretty jank for the most part. But I mean, the guns especially weren't really they didn't really feel that good to use.
In the case of Silent Hill, though, it'll be really weird to not have a gun in general. That means like the melee combat needs to be on point.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they could get away with not having any. I don't think it'd be really like that'd really be a problem. But
I definitely agree they can though. But like that's like half the kit of a Silent Hill character gone right. So like they really need to make up for it. With that in mind.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to like the potential of like how this gameplay could go, because like they haven't, you know, just to reiterate, they haven't shown off anything in regards to gameplay. They kind of just teased it at one point in the trailer, but immediately cut to like more cinematic stuff. I do think it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out and how that compares to like even the recent Silent Hill 2 remake. So I definitely want to see how they're going to take things from that point. I do want to take a moment to like focus on the story aspects of what they've shown off for this trailer, right? They kind of imply that our main character is like just dead from the beginning, and seems like they might actually kind of be teetering between life and death, or they might not have actually fully accepted the fact that they're dead as a person, right?
You think you're going with Jacob's Ladder type shit?
Yeah, kind of, a little bit.
Well, and Silent Hill 2 was heavily inspired by Jacob's Ladder, so it definitely seems like F is kind of carrying on the somewhat of the themes of Silent Hill 2 based on like what I've seen from Silent Hill F. But I mean that makes sense considering it is a psychological horror series as well. Although I would honestly like to see the series return somewhat to the more like occult roots of the franchise, like with Silent Hill 1. But I don't know, maybe we could have a little bit of both with this. Because I mean
they kind of teased that though in the trailer with
yeah,
the shrine and stuff like that. So like
yeah, I mean it definitely for sure seems like there's going to be that in the game. With the monster design and just the way things are playing out and from what we've seen from the trailer. And also just the whole like mysterious fog aspect. I mean, I guess you could assume like, oh, maybe that's like your theory about her being dead, that could just be like, oh, she died, and then this is like the I guess the quote unquote purgatory that she's in, as with James, or it could just be something else.
Yeah, I did hear. I heard one fan theory, and I genuinely hope this one's not true though. That they might be pulling one of the aspects from Short Message that introduced the Silent Hill phenomena, where any fog could just appear if somebody's just so like traumatically like distressed or whatever.
Oh Lord.
I genuinely hope that's not gonna be the case. I don't think.
You know what's messed up though? Like that is theoretically possible if you put in the cult aspect into it, where the cults can summon the fogs of Silent Hill, blah 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 blah, into the whole areas of Silent Hill, right?
Yeah.
But for how the short message is done, I'm like, this is kind of how do you say it, Gen Z-ish writing.
Oh yeah. I would much rather it be just tied to the occult stuff and all this like like this like strange like unfamiliar like ritualistic stuff that we're seeing in the trailer with like the shrine, that does like it seems very like alien almost, right? Because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I kind of like that. I like the weird things that you can get out of like Silent Hill when they start doing like more of the occult stuff, right? So that's kind of what draws the series.
I also think it's definitely taking advantage of the setting being Japan, and that it's harkening back to like to Shintoism and other aspects of Japanese society, like with the rituals. It's just that this is like a the weird, creepy occult ritual, but it's in Japan, so it's inspired by those things.
That's partly what they talked about in the transmission.
Yeah.
So they were kind of talking about like taking the series back to like some of the more familiar aspects of the series that harken back more to Japanese horror, which is what the series was pretty much inspired by for the most part.
Yeah, like it was more so a mix of Japanese and Western horror. But yeah, this more so just, of course, J horror.
Yeah, so that's like the primary focus of what they were wanting to do, and that's also partly why they mentioned they brought on Ryukishi 7 for being one of the writers. There's like 3 writers total for this game, But one of the writers for the game, because they felt like he would be the best person to kind of tell a story around that, and also because apparently he's a mega Silent Hill fan.
Yeah. I didn't know about that about him, but I mean, I guess that's cool if that's true. Honestly, as much as I kind of, I guess more recently have had issues with Ryukishi07, I will say I trust him much more than Bloober Team with Silent Hill 2, especially considering they also said they were fans of Silent Hill, which could be true. I mean, I'm not saying they're not, but yeah, I mean, it would then. And I'm not saying Silent Hill 2 remake was bad or anything, but it's just like, I'm just saying I have more faith in what Ryukishi would do as opposed to what I guess how we were feeling before Silent Hill 2 remake came out about how they might potentially handle Silent Hill 2.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I guess you mean going by the past work of Team A and Team B, you felt more comfortable with Team B in this case, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, also considering Ryukishi has definitely done things in the past that I would say make him more qualified to be a to be a writer for a Silent Hill game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I also...
I don't know if we're going to touch on it too, just real quick, but they did have that on the Steam page. There is and I know like there are some games that do have this, but for some reason with this particular game, it's a slightly more egregious example. There is like how they have those content warnings before where you have to like enter in your birthday and all that. So for this game, they have the content warning, but they have a specific descriptors of like what happens what is going to happen in the game. That kind of like directly spoil like certain character fates and plot points, it seems, for like the Steam page. And I saw this when after they came out with the trailer.
I did hear about that. We could talk about that in
I don't know if there's a screen. I forget it. I don't know if it's still there, but I saw the screenshot like described exactly like what was going to happen to certain characters, and I'm just like thinking, well, thanks for the spoiler, so I know certain things about what's going to happen before the game even fucking comes out.
We can talk about it in a little more detail in just a moment. I just wanted to finish with my point, but yeah, we could talk about it. Yeah, so like I was just gonna say, like in regards to the previous point where we were talking about like the difference between like a Blooper Team saying that they're fans and Ryukishi7, I think part of that probably also just comes from the fact that like, well, because Silent Hill is so inherently a Japanese horror game, right? Even though it had like Western influences, right? Hearing that from like whether a Japanese writer or game developer saying that, it has a little
versus like an Eastern European dev, I guess.
Yeah, it has.
And the other thing with that too that's funny is that we have post Team Silent had like some Eastern European devs work on other Silent Hill games.
Yeah. So it's like it to me it has a little more weight to them saying it, because it's like, okay, well, like they would probably have a better understanding of that type of horror, and especially when they're like implementing like things like Japanese folklore and like yokai into the mix for some of the inspiration for the enemy designs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of holds some merit with how they're going about that.
Real quick with the enemy design too. Apparently there is a specific enemy in that game that is directly inspired by a creature from something else that Ryukishi worked on. So I thought that was interesting how he kind of just is sort of like reusing some of those elements in this game.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about his work other than like.
I guess I can speak as someone who has read his stuff, and does have some basic knowledge about him, because I guess we'll probably talk about it later. But I'll just say with the setting specifically, it is very heavily like there are some certain plot points that are definitely inspired by his previous work.
Yeah, I don't know, like I said, I don't really know much about Ryukichi Seven's work. I think I've seen like clips of some of the anime adaptations, or one of the anime
Yeah,
adaptations
yeah, it's probably
for his
Higurashi.
works. It might be, yeah. But yeah, I'm not too big on I'm not too big on just like gore with like no substance, right? And I'm kind of like
Uh,
which will
yeah, I'll just say without spoiling too much, like the anime, or at least with Higurashi, like it's very much
mm,
there's definitely gore, but the anime kind of misrepresents the source material, as I would say a lot of adaptations tend to do. Um, it's much more psychological. There's definitely gore in it,
yeah.
but the anime makes it seem like, oh, it's just really edgy, and it's just like gore, and that's really all it is, when that's not the case at all.
Like I said,
Um,
I've only seen like uh, I've only seen like a clip or two like out of context. So
yeah.
um, for me
Well, I
personally,
mean, I
I'm
could
just
definitely
saying
see
like
like how out of context that would lead you to that conclusion.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like for me, based off of not just that out of context, but also just generally like how I feel about like horror. Like hey, I'm down for gore in a horror like you know a horror game or horror film, right? But like, if there's like no substance to it, right? Like then it kind of just feels like, well, this is just over glorifying like gore, right? Um, so
Well, that's
I,
why I can't really get into like torture porn and stuff. Like, I've never really been into that. Because to me that's, yeah, just all gore and not really, like,
yeah,
pretty much
so
no
like,
substance.
which that is kind of a concern for this game that they're gonna focus a little too much on that and not have any substance around the like actual story and the characters and whatnot. Um, but we'll see because they didn't really get too deep into the story just yet. Um,
Hmm.
I guess that being said, I guess this is a really good segue to the content warning, um, which you brought up the fact that okay, well, like yeah, it mentioned very like key details and stuff like that. I will say like with the content warning, I don't know. I don't really have too much of an opinion on it other than like we've had content warnings in other like horror games. Spoiling stuff I do think is kind of strange to do that or getting a little more into detail as to what happens instead of just saying like, oh, this game contains explicit scenes of like violence and gore, right? Like in old like
Yeah,
PS2 and PS1 games, right? Like
yeah, like I don't think that people would be getting as upset if it was just very vague descriptors and they didn't specifically mention the instances in which certain things happen.
to be fair, that content warning might not actually show up in the game. That might just be on like the website and like product page description.
Yeah. Well, but at the same time, a lot of people are probably going to play it on Steam, and they're going to see that content warning pop up before
Well,
they
the
like go to purchase it or go to
right,
view the.
right, they're probably gonna see that on the storefronts, so it's like hard to miss, right?
Yeah.
So it's I do think it is strange to go into a little more detail, but I guess I'm just not I'm not so upset about it as far as like it being there just because of the fact that like, we've had content warnings in games like this before.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I guess it's my main issue with it is just the being like just specifically like pointing out like what happens in certain scenes, and I guess what, no, well, not the specific character it happens to, but that there is going to be a character that this thing is going to happen to.
Yeah.
um and especially considering like it would have been a lot more like it kind of ruins certain things as well, because like that, I feel like that specific death they are talking about would have been a lot more effective had I not known how that character was going to die. But now I do. Well, now I know that there is a character that's going to die that way,
Or at least
which is a
can die
really
that. die in that specific way, assuming there's no alternate scenarios where characters can live, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also just a really weird and specific way in which that whatever character is going to die in that way. I'll just say that.
I think I know which one you're
so-
referring to, but because I think
Yeah.
there's one in particular where they're just like really in depth with that one.
Yeah, I think that's it.
So I think I know which one you're referring to. I don't want to say it for anybody that's trying to go in as blind as possible, so I'll leave it at that. Yeah, no, it would have been nice if they just kept things vague, even if they did have to go into slightly more detail. But they didn't say exactly which character. They just said like, okay, well, like one of the characters goes through this, right? Or one of the game depicts one of the characters going through this. And I guess that's also kind of a good way to lead in back into the trailer as well, because like, you know, we do see like Hinako, the main character, like, you know, there's shots of her where she's like losing parts of her clothing, her you know, like her arm and her back are like all like bloodied up and stuff like that, and then you know,
This girl's a fucking trooper, man. Taking all that damage.
Right, like I don't even think
I was
Heather
gonna
went through
say
all
too,
that
like
shit, right? Like
I was gonna say I think it's really cool how at least I'm hoping in the game, like it maybe if you take damage, it'll reflect on the character, like, you know, how damaged you are or how, you know, bad off you are. I don't really see like a lot of games doing that, which I think is a little bit refreshing. Even like the Silent Hill 2 remake didn't really do that. It's just, you know, whenever James was really injured, he would just like hold his arm and stagger around.
he gets really bloodied up too, but he doesn't lose pieces of his clothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I just think that's a really cool like detail they added in.
That would be
Well, the last time that a Japanese company did that was Square Enix in True Detail, and everyone hated it on their birthday.
Yeah.
Also, you don't to get that far. If you know, you know, then maybe it's fine. But you know, considering we play as a female, I hope they actually keep it, you know, toned down and not go all over the place with it. And for once, I'm asking for them to not go all out. You know, just saying. Food for thought.
Well, and I was gonna say too, this is actually the second Konami game that's gonna feature a system like that. The first being the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, Delta, is also gonna have like a persistent damage throughout like uniforms. So it's gonna be in the context of a horror game like Silent Hill. I think that's a little more interesting because it's depending on how it's done. It could lead to some very interesting, I think, scenarios where, like, okay, like, all three of us could play this game, right? And we have completely different experiences where each one of us gets damaged in different ways that we didn't expect to get damaged, right? And then it kind of leads us to, like, having, like, almost like a different story to tell about the game, right? So I think that's going to be really cool if that's the case, if that's how they're going to be going about it. But they haven't said too much about Hinako's clothing getting damaged as much, you know.
Yeah.
There is also like you know, there was also like the shot at the like basically tail end of the trailer where like her face basically falls off. And that's essentially going to be the steelbook cover for the game. It was a pretty...
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I just thought of like what that steelbook cover like kind of reminded me a little bit of. It kind of looks a little bit like Uzumaki from Junji Ito, like just the face. I didn't even think about that until now. I was like, yeah, that is what that reminds me of. It looks like the girl from Uzumaki with the like the void in her part of her face.
See, that would have been an interesting writer to bring on for a Silent Hill game.
Well, oh, I mean, we almost had that. That a certain game that was canceled.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess this might be the next best thing, hopefully. But you know, yeah. That I don't know. I'm wondering. I'm hoping that, like, you know, I'm just wondering what the significance of that is. Like her face falling off like that, and then that one character having a hole in the middle of her face.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's probably going to be like some kind of possibly some sort of symbolism, but I guess we won't really know until we get more details about the plot and the characters. I will say though, like again, this is the setup, of course. I mean, does seem fairly familiar, especially, you know, if anybody's watched or read Higurashi, they'll probably be reminded of a lot of things. The fact that this town, it's not necessarily taking place in the 80s like Higurashi, but it is in the 60s. But it's still like a small Japanese town, most likely an isolated town, and it's covered in this fog. And there was previously a dam construction project, and also the main cast seems to be a group of friends that are all supposedly experiencing this together. We're not too sure about that, but yeah, it's a lot of familiar elements here with Higurashi, and probably some other stuff he's done too. So just knowing that, I can make some predictions about what the story might be, but then I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of new stuff too that he hasn't really done before. But I definitely think I'm expecting there is going to be like references for people who are fans of his other stuff.
Yeah, I'm just curious how they're gonna also handle this game with like 3 different writers. Because they didn't really go too much into it with the writers. They kind of mentioned, oh yeah, like Ryukishi 7's gonna focus on like the main elements of the story, as well as like the I think the other world, and like the other 2 writers are gonna focus on you know, like the shrine and just the main like fogged up town, which the name of the town is Ebisu Gaoka, which roughly like translates to like Prosperity Hills.
For the sake of my dignity, I'm not trying pronouncing that.
Yeah. So like, I'm wondering how they're gonna handle that. They did base this town off of a real town, which is, you know, that's kind of like what happened with the original Silent Hill. It's based off of this random abandoned town in Pennsylvania, if I remember right.
I swear it's the last time I'll bring it up, but this is literally also what happened in Higurashi. Higurashi's the town in that is also based on a real town, but it's under a different name. But it's actually a real place. Like a lot of the places that are featured in there are directly like pulled from that.
Gotcha. In this game's case, and I mean, you could tell me while I talk about it, I guess. They did go on location to record like just audio, general audio of like you know, nature and stuff like that, and just like you know, like alleyways, and they did like photo shoots around the town, just to kind of like get general aspects of that town, like sort of recreated, not necessarily to a T, but definitely you can see where like the inspiration gets taken from that town. And Yeah, they're just they're trying to make this in a way, like I kind of see, like I'm going in this from the perspective of like, well, how did Team Silent do it back with the first three Silent Hills, right? And so it's a similar process to that, I guess, just not entirely the same, right? And you can kind of tell with that too, just based off of the fact that like, okay, like this game's Otherworld, for example, right? It's not like all like rusted up and metallic and like things just kind of looking like they're just completely run down in the same way that you would see it in like like an abandoned or very unkept town in America, which is what the inspiration was for Silent Hill and at least the older games, right? In this game's case, it's more like, well, how does a old, very rundown, likely abandoned and not populated town in Japan would look like, and how could we also tie that into like more Japanese folklore kind of aesthetic and setting, which is part of the reason why we're seeing like the spider lilies that show up throughout the trailer whenever it seems like it's transitioning from the fog to the other world.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how it's definitely, it seems like at least it's more so like a fresh take on the other world, and it's not like what we're familiar with. And yeah, I mean, like you said, I like how it's definitely inspired by its setting, having the plants and flowers that are native to Japan.
I mean, it certainly
and also the
beats,
enemies, of course, being like covered in those like flowers and plants.
Yeah, I was gonna say it certainly beats Short Message with all its fucking post-it notes about cyberbullying, so and internet cloud.
Oh god, that's just terrifying.
I'm just saying, like, when your main protagonist's main trauma is that they just wanted internet cloud, we're setting a very low bar here. So
at least I mean, if there are themes like that in F, it wouldn't be cyberbullying. It would probably be like actual like bullying and abuse or something like something real.
Yeah,
Instead of just
this is Japan too. Like when kids get bullied there, they get bullied hard.
So
yeah.
So they did. I think it's on the product description, or at least on the website where that.
Yeah, I think they mentioned something about that.
The game does deal with like bullying and like abuse and stuff like that, right? And discrimination, like discrimination on like women and stuff like that. Now I know like the first thing that people are gonna like jump to is, oh well, like are they trying to make the game political by having like certain themes like that, right, be present? But I'm thinking more like in the context of like a Japanese story, right, where these sort of things are still pretty present or impact people like pretty often. And I don't think it's
you also have to consider when it takes place as well.
Yeah,
it being in the 60s.
Yeah, so I think that's actually kind of fitting. I don't think they're gonna, because we have a Japanese raider. I don't think they're gonna try to push some political agenda, so I'm not too concerned about that. Now, granted, if there's like some producer interference or studio interference where they cause them to do that, well, we'll see. But I'm not getting that that impression so far.
Yeah, I mean, there have definitely been instances, especially recently, of Western studios trying to push their own values onto a Japanese product that was made in Japan, like a video game. But it doesn't seem like that's probably going to be the case here. At least I kind of doubt it based on what we've seen. And I don't think it's, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that we're gonna have to worry about anything like that.
Sorry about that. Turn my chair on.
Yeah. Oh, you wanted to say something, Brendan?
Yeah. In the case of this, though, I'm like, yeah, I understand that everyone is like hypersensitive based on like modern politics, though. But with the context of Japan, among other things, though, their treatment of women has been very spotty, especially when you go further back in history. So for the themes of discriminating, sorry, and sexism against women, all that shit, it was very prevalent. I mean, hell, there's a reason why certain norms like women-only carts in the subway or phones have to have like a sound indicator when you take a picture and stuff like that is because of how women were treated in the country, right? So I'm like, it's not about them being uber political or going woke, as the cool kids like to say, right? It's more so them addressing their treatment and history of how women were in Japan,
Yeah.
The context does matter, and you gotta look up your history based on how, based on the region you're in. Like the East, how they treated women is very different from how the West treated women. It's fact.
Yeah, and also just for added context, like Neobirds, like they're a Taiwanese based studio, but the branch that's working on this game is the Japanese branch. So it's like, aside from the fact that, okay, well, we got Konami involved to some degree as a publisher, and they probably are gonna have like some of their developers working on that as assistance for the development, right? We have the Japanese branch of Neobards. We have Japanese writers working on this game, right? And then on top of that, we also have the soundtrack being composed as usual by Akira Yamaoka. Very unlikely that there's going to be like some sort of push for more Western ideologies in regards to the storytelling. So, actually, speaking of which as well, from the like music that was in the trailer, because I don't know if it was actually Akira Yamaoka's like one of the tracks that Akira Yamaoka has worked on for the game, but he is working on the game soundtrack, and I was just kind of curious how you guys felt about that.
I mean,
no comment because like I just heard it in passing. I wasn't really listening to the music. I was looking at the trailer right now, so I'm gonna go skip that one. Hello, kitty.
I mean, it depends because I know they worked on the music for the Silent Hill 2 remake as well, but honestly, I was kind of underwhelmed and disappointed with the soundtrack of the Silent Hill 2 remake. It just felt like a lot of it was, reused tracks from the original game, just slightly different. It didn't really stand out.
So with SH2 remake, they were quote unquote rearranged tracks.
Yeah,
and you can kind of hear it, but like I do actually agree from what I've played and what I've listened to for SH2 remake. There are certain tracks that I do think are better in the remake than they were in the original, but then there's a lot of other tracks that I absolutely love in the original that I just cannot stand in the remake.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me personally though, I'd say it's more so the sound engineering, more so the soundtrack. But there's also me saying that I have not listened to the soundtrack independently. Because when you listen to the soundtrack independently, you're gonna have a different feel for it, right?
Yeah.
It's the same shit that happened with Resident Evil 2 remake, where the sound engineering wasn't that strong or that great in that game, because sometimes the music just won't play after a certain point or just stop playing altogether, In certain areas, or not play at all. But whereas in we actually listen to the soundtrack, it's a fucking great ass soundtrack.
Yeah.
I just think it really depends because I do really like Akira Yamaoka, and they've done some incredible soundtracks. But yeah, like I've heard what it sounded like in the Silent Hill 2 remake, but I've heard some other stuff. Some other soundtracks they've done. Uh, for example, the game I've been playing called Slitterhead. They did the soundtrack for that, and there's some pretty good tracks in there. So I'm just hoping that they're they maybe give us something interesting for Silent Hill F. Honestly, I would be hoping for something that's obviously it would have to be something that sounds like it's that utilizes a lot of maybe like traditional Japanese like instruments or whatever, to remind you of where it takes place. I think that would obviously be what I would expect from the soundtrack.
You
but
don't want rap in Silent Hill F, like
yeah, no,
Shadows?
it should be like with the Shadows, yeah, where it's just like multicultural and implements like various different things and not just I mean, it's about as confused as the setting of the game and how they messed that up. But no, I think they'll probably do a good job in terms of if that's where they're going with it, which I would assume that's probably where they're going to go with it. Considering where it takes place.
So Yamaoka did like kind of confirm in the transmission at least that that there is going to be more inspiration on like traditional music.
Yeah.
For him, it's kind of like the way he's going about it is that it's a way to experiment with his music that he hasn't been able to do because it's just a completely different take from what he's done in the past.
Yeah, and I'm honestly all for that. I want to hear something a little bit different from him because I feel like in some points, like he's definitely a good composer, but I feel like he definitely plays it safe at the same time in certain instances. And he sort of just like sometimes just reuses certain like themes and stuff like he's used before. So I kind of like to hear something a little bit different from him, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with Slitterhead, for instance, it definitely sounded like you could tell it's Yamaoka, but you could also tell it's like something a little bit different and more so unique to that game.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I'm personally I'm just interested because like I've said this in my review for Short Message, like that guy could show up to work in a drunken stupor and still like shit out some bangers,
yeah.
So like, hungover and like just not giving a fuck, and he'd probably still produce something that I would like, and that's you don't get too many composers like that,
Yeah.
So, and I do think that like with the overall setting of the game, it's gonna be interesting, and I'm really interested to see like how that's gonna play out with like when we're in the shrine basically. Because I don't know if they're gonna have like a music that's fitting per area. So like general areas of the fogged up town, right? How that music maybe transitions when you're in the other world, and then also when you're in the shrine, because all of that music might sound very distinctive and different to fit each dedicated area, right? Because we only get glimpses of each one of these areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a good idea. So, I mean, hopefully that's what they end up doing. I mean, it would make sense if they had like a different theme for whatever specific area you were in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm very curious to see how that's gonna play out. I guess one of the last few things we could talk about before we wrap up for today is the few enemies that we kind of got like very, very brief, glimpses of within the trailer. So it's clear that there's it's not necessarily like a mannequin, but definitely like a person, almost like they're strung up to like move around like one. Is like one of the enemy types for sure. And it seems like that might be like the main sort of enemy type, but then there's also like one that's there's one that's alluded to and kind of you see like a very quick frame of in the background. This like yokai that is able to like kind of stretch its head around, like stretch and elongate its head and wrap its head around like victims. And they're kind of alluding to a multi-tailed or nine-tailed fox as maybe not necessarily an enemy, but definitely there's some ties to that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely like what I've seen of the enemy designs. Definitely a lot of just stuff that, you know, if you've seen anything J horror, a lot of them will definitely seem familiar to you. But it's not a bad thing. I mean, I've always kind of been particularly freaked out by like the ghosts and like J horror related stuff. And it definitely seems like that's where they're going with some of those enemies, but some of them also have that unique design of having those, like, I guess, like some of the things that we saw in the trailers with the like the flowers on their heads and stuff like that. That's kind of different, but so hopefully we might see some of those. I think the thing that freaked me out the most was there's this one particular enemy that we see that has like we see it very like briefly, but it has like multiple faces and heads or faces and have like multiple legs. Um, that one looked really freaky. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's going to be like a common enemy or maybe a boss. But yeah, that one definitely like freaked me the fuck out. Is just basically based on the design alone.
Yeah, I think that if it's the one that I'm thinking of, it might be the common enemy.
Yeah,
because they have like they have a shot of if it's the one that like shows up in the trailer that's like in the alleyway that's like up the stairs or whatever that runs towards Hinako.
it might be that one. But yeah, I mean, and also like I'm expecting there to be a. It seems like based on what we've seen of some of the creature designs, there's definitely. I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems to me like there's a heavy siren influence with the creatures and how they look.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got that
Like with I think
impression,
in Siren they were called the Shibito.
yes, but I kind of got that impression just based off of, well, when they transition to the other world with the flowers, right? There's a lot of blood, right? And in Siren,
Yeah.
right, there's like when things start going down, it starts raining like almost endless blood. So I think it's a very very similar vibe, and you know, I'm pretty much all for it. Like because I doubt we're ever gonna see Sony give us a new Siren game, or whoever owns the rights to Siren currently.
Well,
Nice.
it is funny you bring that up because the game I mentioned previously, Slitterhead, actually has like if you remember the sight jacking mechanic from Siren, it literally has a sight jacking mechanic. But it's also the game was also created by one of the people that was a former Team Silent member and had also worked on Siren. So yeah, it seems like he carried some elements of that over into the Slitterhead.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, never say never, because Sony has been trademarking shit against Siren.
Really? I say never just because of the fact, well, yeah, actually you're right, because, but like, you know, I say like, I don't know if we'll ever get one just because of the fact that, well, like, the last time, aside from the backwards compatible update to, the PS4 version of, Siren 1, the last time they even acknowledged Siren was for its anniversary, series anniversary, and then they just kind of left it at that.
And then I think they have like some kind of, don't they have like a cafe or something in Japan that has like it's Siren themed?
They did have a Siren themed cafe. I don't know if it's I think it was a limited time thing, though. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they would be still up. Probably not.
Yeah.
But it's like it would be interesting if this game, if it's received well and stuff like that, if that kind of causes Sony to kind of consider maybe doing another Siren.
Shit, if they don't do it, get someone else in Japan to do it. Like,
Yeah.
Capcom's on a roll right now with their horror. They got Konami again. Fuck it. Sign a deal with them. Make them do second party title with Siren.
Siren
Seriously,
remake.
So,
We kind of had that.
again.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Siren Blood Curse on the PS3.
Let's see, but that's a game that would make a little more sense than remaking The Last of Us and Until Dawn. But what do I know? What do I know, right?
I think that's just a result of Sony moving to, the headquarters to California.
No, I think it's just incompetent leadership.
Well, that too, yeah. But there's definitely less. It seems like there's much less of a focus on their Japanese properties and more so trying to prop up the, more their, more recent, like, I guess, Western franchises. If you could really even call The Last of Us and Horizon a proper franchise, considering there's like both of them are like just two games.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I'd respond to them tackling other remakes that are unnecessary. Probably about the same, but like a Siren one. I think Siren is like a little bit more justifiable than some of the other ones that I mentioned.
Yeah,
if they
there's plenty of niche Sony properties that have unfortunately just been forgotten about.
Extermination. That's another one.
Oh, well,
yeah,
I don't think we're ever gonna see that come back.
Oh man, I'd kill for even just have it backwards compatible.
That's super niche.
I would kill for that. But yeah, no, I mean we'll see, because okay, let's say, just strictly sticking with Konami, right, and let's try not to diverge too far into Sony, right, but hypothetically speaking, maybe we'll see other games in a similar setting for Silent Hill in the future. Maybe it'll spawn in a new sub-series of Silent Hill games, right, that people can appreciate, which, I mean, that's the most we could hope for, right? Or, it could also influence other Silent Hill games and how those games are developed in the future, right? Regardless of the setting, which would also be an interesting thing to see. I don't know, based off of what I've seen so far of this game, which isn't a whole lot. I'm still fairly optimistic about it. I guess my main concern is just that like I mentioned before, that they don't focus too much on delivering a good story as opposed to just focusing a little too much on the gore. But we'll see. But I want to know how you guys feel about that, where your concerns, and are you interested in this game overall, or anything sort of in between?
For me, yeah, I'm actually a lot more interested in the game now. I just hope that from a technical standpoint that the game is a lot better overall. Because with Silent Hill: The Sword Message, that game was mid. Move on from that, right? Silent Hill 2 was a surprise hit, all things considered. But I really do hope that this game does knock it out of the park for a original, Silent Hill title. not a remake or some type of free to play type shit, right? That's all I'm looking for. So yeah, in the Warriors, not really. I'm not going to lose sleep over this game, truth be told, because it is again a new property of Silent Hill rather than a remake of a Silent Hill
Yeah.
game. So
Um,
anyway, I'm curiously optimistic.
yeah, yeah. For me, I'm definitely, I guess you'd say cautiously optimistic. Mostly because, yeah, I mean, Ryukishi is a great writer, but he's done some questionable things recently. Um, Specifically what he did with Higurashi by deciding to bring it back for more so just as a cash grab more than anything else, because there was really no reason for him to do so. Um, but other than that, like, he has written some pretty great things. So I mean, considering this is not like Higurashi or something he's worked on before, I have some slightly more high expectations. Um, but at the same time, um, in terms of concerns, my only concern would just be from a technical standpoint, in terms of I wasn't sure what engine this game was running on, and then I saw, unfortunately, the dreaded UE5 at the end of the trailer, and a lot of people have had many different issues with this engine. This is the same engine that is the Silent Hill 2 remake runs on, and that game, unfortunately, like when it first came out, had quite a few performance issues, regardless of people's setup, because it ran on this engine. So I do have some concerns in that regard,
Mhm.
but maybe it won't be as bad. I guess it really just depends on how well optimized it is, but unfortunately, optimization seems to be a thing that escapes a lot of major game studios in recent years. So I guess all we can do there is just cross our fingers and hope that it's not going to be a complete disaster when it comes out in terms of its performance. But that's the only like real concern I have. That, and I guess that Ryukishi could potentially drop the ball somehow. But he has written some great things in the past, so I'm hoping that he can, he will actually put some effort into this one, instead of just kind of, you know, like he did with Higurashi, just bringing it back just to essentially just to. I'm not even actually sure why he did what he did with that series, but that's another topic in and of itself. Um, but here, I don't think we have to worry about that. Like I said, considering he's not done anything with Silent Hill before, so I'm interested to see what his take on it's going to be. For all we know, it could just be Higurashi, but in Silent Hill, which honestly I wouldn't have a huge problem with. I guess, um, considering Higurashi is still pretty good, so I mean, I wouldn't mind if he just, even if he did just kind of repeat some plot points from that series or characters, and just put it into a Silent Hill setting. I guess that wouldn't be the worst thing ever. It wouldn't be completely original, but I guess it wouldn't be terrible either. So I guess it just depends on how he does it. But yeah, other than that, I definitely would say I'm like I said, cautiously optimistic. Hopefully it'll be good. The only concerns, like I said, I have are just potentially what Ryukishi could do, and also just the performance issues that come along with anything running on UE5.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
I just wanted to add to that too, because you mentioned earlier, regardless of the rig that you have for SH2 remake, there's just still problems with that. And I definitely ran into that. I actually tried running a optimization mod, but with no luck, unfortunately. And I'm running on a Intel 10850K with a Intel B580 12 gigabyte card, which is like on par with like an RTX 4060 Ti, I think. So it's kind of unfortunate when the game says the developers list the game as being recommended for like an RTX 2070 at minimum, right? Or at recommended, I think. And then at least like an i7, like i7 something. I forget off the top of my head, but it's definitely not like an i9, right? So you'd think that my rig would be more than capable of being able to play this game without any sort of technical issues, and yet here we are, and I'm getting like traversal stutters no matter what settings I change. So
I mean, it's called Stutter Engine 5 for a reason.
So this shows you right there, right? No matter how powerful your equipment is, if you have a bad engine or bad optimization, your rig won't help you.
yeah.
At
Yeah,
most, it'll
unfortunately,
probably
a lot of
soften the
devs are
blow.
just getting very lazy with when it comes to optimizing games.
Yeah, so I do agree with that concern for sure, because it's like, I want to be able, if I'm gonna play this game, right, like I want to be able to play it without any issues, and that's across the board, because if I'm not mistaken, SH2 Remake also has the same sort of performance issues on console as well. So
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
if you play on the PS5 Pro.
really,
yeah,
For
like
some reason, it plays worse.
yeah. Unfortunately, you can't escape it. These issues, even if you play some of these games on console.
well, I that's news to me with it being worse on Pro. That's
Yeah, because they try to use the AI upscaler for the PS5 Pro, and I don't know how they did it though, but they made the situation worse. So like you get a worse image quality and worse frame rate probably. So
that's
it,
impressive.
it was
That's so UE5 has like I'm wondering if it has to do with the UE5 like upscaling technology like that they use for like uh upscaling image resolution because on PC, if you do like, for example, like if you play a game like Stalker 2, and that game you pretty much have to run upscalers, by the way, because it runs so terribly, and it uses the same engine. But if you use something like FSR, it just produces a really shitty image, but but that's mainly just due to the upscalers it's using. I don't know if how it works on console.
in this
I
case though, I don't think it's the engine. And that's saying something too. I think it's actually
yeah.
just the developers not doing a good job optimization around the PSSR upscaler.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, so I mean that it is kind of concerning when, but it's different devs too, though. So how Blooper handles their development around UE5 might be different, like vastly different from how Neobards does it. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Neobards they handled the Onimusha remasters as well. So
Just
but
the
although
first
like
one, just the first one. The
yeah,
second one's being done in house.
okay.
So
Well, I
so
mean, they did a pretty decent job with that, but I mean that might not be any sort of that might not be like a
but
benchmark we can use, I guess, to
I think a
judge
better
like
one would
Yeah,
be either Reverse or Resident Evil Reverse or Resident Evil Resistance, because they had access
yeah.
to RE Engine. Granted, I don't know how much quote unquote better RE Engine is compared to Unreal 5.
uh, it seems more stable. That much is concerned.
Yeah, it's more stable, but like, I'm just strictly talking about like how much like in visual comparison, or just like in terms of just
Oh,
development, right? Like the development process might be better or worse on RE Engine. I'm not really sure.
yeah, you just pull the strings at that point, So we're not
Yeah,
developers.
so I don't want to like really go into the like that sort of aspect, but just like um I would imagine that they probably probably just would have an easier time working on like something like RE Engine, but unfortunately, even though Capcom has mentioned that they are open to basically outsourcing RE Engine in the future, we haven't gotten to that point just yet with Capcom. So it's going to be interesting to see how Neobards can handle a game's development using Unreal, which would be a first for them as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Okay, so unless if there's anything that we kind of forgot to mention or neglected to mention that you guys want to talk about before we wrap up, I guess this is a good point to wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've brought up everything that's relevant so far, and from at least what we have from the game.
Yeah, so okay, so Brandel, where can we find you, good sir?
My main platform is Twitter. Immortal Brandel. I do have a link to my bio so you can see my other affiliations or whatever. I do have a Blue Sky, but I don't use it that often because I'm not on social media that often anymore. But yeah, you can catch me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Immortal Brandel.
And Chaos, where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube and Twitter at KaptainKaos. You can also find me on Instagram at Enigmatic Arts. That's Enigmatic with a K. That's where I post my art stuff. And yeah.
Yep, and then you guys can find me as BioDevil_Dom on pretty much everything. I'll also have a link tree so you could just follow me on anything and everything that I'm on. And with that all said, well, Silent Hill F is definitely an interesting looking game. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this game turns out. We'll definitely probably be talking about more of this game as more information comes out, and have more instances of us talking about like more in-depth trailer stuff if they show like lengthier trailers or have like gameplay trailers, which that's what I'm mostly looking forward to, is seeing how the gameplay is going to shape up. So we'll definitely talk more about Silent Hill F. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed today's video, feel free to check out some of this other stuff that we've talked about and some of the other content that I have on the channel, and we'll see you around for the next one. So take care. Bye.
See ya.
Go away.